Hi, this is Marlene Dinarius here from the Latinum Institute, and I'm continuing on with my series of explorations into Thoroughbass. And in this lesson, or exploration, or what we want to call it, we're looking at Corfe. He was the late organist of the cathedral at Salisbury and a gentleman of His Majesty's Chapel Royal. Published in the late 1700s, Thoroughbass Simplified, or the whole theory and practice of Thoroughbass laid open to the meanest capacity, that's someone like me in other words, exemplified by short and easy rules, tending to explain the nature and origin of all the chords and figures used in this science, with exercises applicable to each rule extracted from the compositions of Handel, Corelli, Gemmiani, Tartini, Sacchini, etc., by Joseph Corfe. London, printed and published by Preston at his wholesale warehouse 97 The Strand. Price 19 and sixpence. So let's look at what Corfe has to say in his preface. The study of this part of musical science has been very often discouraged, not only from the idea of its extreme difficulty, which is something that actually attracts me to it, and the appearance of so many figures, which dazzle the eye and embarrass the scholar, but from the multitude of rules which burden the memory. The author of the following plan, in order to simplify the method of acquiring the theory and practice of Thoroughbass, flatters himself that the most uninformed student, with very little application, may, in a short time, become perfectly acquainted with all the principles of this art. He has suited his instructions chiefly to amateurs, not to professors, as they are already extant sufficiently on this subject. Treatises elaborate and excellent. But the experience of more than 40 years, in which he has been employed in teaching Thoroughbass to young pupils, will, he presumes, entitle him to some degree of credit for the easy and familiar method he has adopted in the following work. And I'll conclude this first part of Corfe with reading the introduction, and then we, in the next video, will move into the actual lessons. The reputation of inventing the indication of chords by figures in what the Italians call Basso, Continuo, or Thoroughbass, has been given to Ludovico Ovidiano in the year 1600. But it should seem the writers on this subject from that time till within these few years were more anxious to inform professional men than young scholars, their books being so crowded with dry and mathematical rules, and the ambition of adorning their works with as ostentatious display of science served only to render their publications more obscure and of course less instructive. For mathematical rules, particularly to young minds, can be but very unsuccessfully applied in the theory of music. Dr. Pepusch, a Prussian, who resided many years in England and was one of the greatest theoretic or scientific musicians of modern times, published his treatise on harmony in the year 1731, in which he most clearly demonstrates the doctrine respecting the fundamental bass and its inversions, the invention of which was afterwards claimed by Rameau, who in his Démonstration du principe de l'harmonie, published at Paris in 1750, tells us that he found the rules of Thoroughbass to be in a state of confusion, and that he reduced them all to their fundamental base. As a proof of their origin, and remarks, it is an astonishing occurrence that the practice of Thoroughbass could be carried so far as it really was without its foundation being known, and that all the rules should be so exactly found without the principle being discovered on which they depended. But as Dr. Burney observes, it is scarcely possible that the great composers of Italy and Germany were ignorant whence every supposed base was derived, for the great harmonists of the 16th century seldom used any other fundamental bases, and it only seems as if Rameau had given new names to old well-known combinations when he calls the keynote générateur, basse fondamentale. However, I do not take upon myself to decide on this subject, but only think it necessary to mention it for the information of the young student, especially as Rameau's first work was published in 1722. To render this work as generally useful as possible, I have endeavoured to adapt it to the capacity of those totally uninformed in this science. Although it cannot be supposed that I have the smallest claim to the discovery of any of the principles of Thoroughbass, yet the arrangement and simplicity, which I flatter myself will be found in this treatise, may contribute in some measure to facilitate the practice of the young scholar and lead him, step by step, to a perfect knowledge of this art. The key of C is used in all the rules as the major mode, and that of A as the minor, to avoid difficulties arising from sharps and flats, but the rules are general and may be applied to every key in the scale. And I would like to remark here that I explained how to transpose the keys very easily using the solfeggio system in the previous set of lessons when I was going through Hawkins. So if you want to learn how to transpose the basic major and minor solfeggio scales right through all the scales without any difficulty, then have a look at those, and that will help you with this book. The examples are selected from the works of the best authors, in which every chord used in Thoroughbass will be found, explained, and traced to its original fundamental base. Although the genius and fancy of some modern composers have led them to take great liberties by introducing many chromatic and extraneous modulations into their works, yet, on an investigation of some of their extreme discords, it will appear that they may be reconciled to the present system of harmony. But it is the singular and unexpected manner those dissonant passages are introduced which produces the great effect on the ear. The scholar will find several extracts from some of these modern compositions in the course of this work, with explanations and observations on the derivation of all such chords. A few of the examples are filled up as a specimen to show how the scholar should proceed with the others, as nothing can improve a young student more than writing and filling up the harmony of every chord. The treble line is therefore left for that purpose, except now and then, in the second class of exercises, the upper note is given as a hint to assist the scholar in the arrangement and disposition of the chord. I have thought it expedient to defer explaining some nice points on modulation in the first part of this work, and likewise the examples on the extreme and chromatic chords, with which it is necessary the scholar should be acquainted, until all the first rules shall be thoroughly digested. I would likewise recommend young students not to crowd the chords when they fill up the exercises, as there is more taste and judgment required than they are aware of in knowing what notes to omit and what to double. The melody also should be particularly attended to. The examples sometimes are filled up purposely to show what notes it would be proper to omit and what to double. for it is not always necessary to fill the whole harmony of a chord, particularly in accompanying the voice, but very often a third alone is allowed, or even preferred, without any other part of the chord. This requires some time and attention in the scholar. Many instances will be found in the course of examples for the further information of the young student. I have given additional weight to all the rules from the authority of the most eminent masters who have written on the subject, in several extracts and quotations occasionally made from their works. So a little bit about Joseph Corfe. I'm just having a look at the Wikipedia article on him. He was born in 1740 and he died in 1820. And he's noted here that he was an English church singer and organist, and also known as a composer. He was born in Salisbury, the son of one Joseph Corfe, born in 1705, into a musical family. He had a musical education from John Stevens, the organist of Salisbury Cathedral, and became his apprentice. And he was also a lay vicar at the cathedral. On the 21st of February 1783, he was appointed one of the gentlemen of the Chapel Royal, Windsor, and he became the Salisbury Cathedral organist in 1792. So Corfe's major work was a volume of church music containing a well-known service in B-flat and anthems, and he also wrote glees, mainly arranged from familiar melodies. And other works were selected of sacred musical compositions, a treatise on singing, 1799, and his Thoroughbass Simplified, which we're looking at here, published in 1806. And his son, Arthur Thomas Corfe, took over as organist of Salisbury Cathedral in 1804. And then their son, John David Corfe, was for many years the organist of Bristol Cathedral. So this family has a long history of music. So Thoroughbass Simplified, published in 1806. And that's it. I'm going to continue on with this and add some lessons from this book to my playlist of explorations into Thoroughbass. I hope you enjoyed that and speak to you soon. Bye.